Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 5/15/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 103. And I have arrived! I completed 5 and 6, the last part of number 6 as well, and completed the exercise Tic Tac Toe. This turned out to be pretty involved. I feel like I spent just as much time on this simple game that I did on the paper rock scissors, which I don't know. I think it's just working with the scopes and everything, like I mentioned in the last video, has been a little more challenging because it's a little more of a learning curve, having to know where to logically place things to where they can be exposed or not exposed publicly or privately, depending on how you're wanting to set it up. Yeah, there's a lot more forethought into this, particularly because of that. So that's good. I learned a lot along the way. I will say I am not feeling froggy, and I'm not doing the optional stuff with the AI. I I would like to move on to the next part of the next modules. So we will, or I will not be doing that. You may if you want, and you can post in the comments your solutions if you feel froggy and ambitious there. So with that said, we're going to go over it here. Number 5 is build logic that checks for when the game is over. Should check for 3 in a row in a tie. Number 6 is clean up the interface to allow players to put in their names. Like I said in the last video, I'd already done that to control the flow of the game. Include the button to start and restart the game. Already had that, but the restart function actually didn't work. It just started the game and started the create player function for the inputs. And then so I went ahead and created another button. I'll show you that here in a minute that does the restarting essentially. And then I added a display element that congratulates the winning player, and I did that as well. So without further ado, let's go over the button real quick. Get some of the easy low-hanging fruit out of the way. So you see there's a clear board button here. There's 15 pixels of padding, or excuse me, margin in between the add player add player start game and the clear board. So clear board, as you can see here, there's my button for clear board, class clear board button, and it's titled clear board. And for the styling of that, margin top 15 pixels is all I got for that. It's pretty simple, straightforward button. And for the JavaScript for that, I stuck it down. The listener for that is down at the bottom of a display controller module we've been working on. And it's right at the bottom here. And it's a constant variable clear button board equals document query selector clear board button. And clear board button, we're going to add an event listener to it for click, and it's going to call clear board, which if you I learned this as well. You can not put the parentheses after your function, and it won't invoke it immediately. It will call it like it's a variable. So I did that, and then it calls down here, and then it turns it into a function via when it sees this, the two parentheses here, and then it does location.reload, which we worked on in previous videos and projects past. Basically, location.reload just does a refresh of the browser, just like as if you hit F5 or hit refresh. It does the same thing. Why it's important that I didn't put the prins here is because I found out, since this is a module and we have the anonymous function immediately being invoked down here, what would happen was when I would have the parentheses after the clear board, the Tic Tac Toe game would constantly refresh. I couldn't do anything. It would just refresh, 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 refresh. And it was because all this is being invoked at once. And so clearboard was being invoked. The easiest way I understand it and to explain it just through the behavior was that clearboard was being invoked as a function, which you can see here, it's a local function, not exposed. But because I was calling it as a function here on the event listener, it was constantly hitting it and reloading the page, and I couldn't do anything else. It was basically in a forever loop, essentially. So when I took the prins off the end, it must treat it like a variable instead of a function, because then all of a sudden my looping stopped, and it stopped doing reloading every millisecond. So now when I click it, it does a reload, just as you'll see here. See a little. It doesn't. I guess I can click some buttons here. You can see it better reload. See, that's all it does. So yeah, so learn something new there. Didn't know that. Just wanted to share that with you guys, a little Prinz trick. So, and it probably is only doing that because we're inside a module, a module that's self-invoked. So anyway, the next part is the beefy one for today. I spent a lot of time on is this right here. So this is the chunk of code and logic that runs the tracks the wins and writes it to the screen, and that's inside of display controller module. So so again, this is all anonymously or invoked immediately through the module, but since it's a function, it will run, but it's not going to do anything on the screen until it goes down here and runs these if checks that are based on what happens up here. So I'll just explain that a little bit better here. So we have a function. It's a local function called checkWin, and it takes a parameter player, and player is the that's in there because what I'm doing down here is, you can see there's some if checks. So what I'm doing is I'm doing if else statements, and I'm actually running checkWin. This is kind of clever. Not gonna lie, I use the help of Google to figure some of this out. But I use an if statement, but I'm calling the checkWin, and I'm inputting X or O or else it's a tie basically. But I'm inputting the player X and O in there, and seeing if if it evaluates to true, and if it does, it spits this out. So I'm kind of getting out of order here. So I just want to show you that's why player is there, because player is what's in the quotes here. So X is the player in this instance, even though it probably doesn't flow well with my variables, but that's all right. So X is the player input here, and O is the player input there for the checkWin. So anyway, so we have the checkWin player. We have a constant vertical, horizontal, and diagonal variables established here. And what these are the possible winning scenarios. And so they're kind of a clever way to get this is that the map function. So we put 036 and 012. And we map them, which basically means that we're going to do a callback function to each element of the array and returns a new array based on the content. So we're going to return I, and I is going to be defined as the inputs of 0, 3, and 6. So what it's going to do is it's going to go through here. It's going to do I's be 0 first, so be 0, and then 0 plus 1 is 1, and 0 plus 2 is 2. So the first coordinate will be, the first vertical optional win will be 0, 1, and 2. And that's a vertical win. Did I do that right? I may have labeled that wrong. Actually might be a horizontal. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it does exactly that. So then it goes to 3. So you have 3, and then 3 plus 1 is 4, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So then you have, 3, 4, and 5. So then that's another, it would be horizontal. So 3, 4, 5. So you have that. Basically, it gives you your 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's creating the. Let me just change that because that is bothering the crud out of me. It's actually horizontal, and this one is vertical. So like I said, sorry for the hiccup there. So basically what these are doing is it creates those, maps those arrays of possibilities, and then you have another one called diagonal. I don't need to do a map on this one because there isn't multiple, there isn't 3 different map options. There isn't 3 different win options for the array, it's just 2. So you just write them out. 0, 4, 8 and 2, 4, 6 go diagonally. Remember, these are the index locations of each of the arrays. So both those are the diagonal ones. So and then we have a variable of all wins, and that takes on the empty array, and then dot concatenate horizontal, dot concatenate vertical, and dot concatenate diagonal. And all that does is it takes everything that was just discussed and computed here and combines them into one big array, and that's going to be called all wins, and it's going to be, inside, take on that empty all wins array. So the all wins will be the horizontal, the vertical, and the diagonal all together. So then we have another variable called results, and it takes on all wins dot sum. So we've never been through this before, but dot sum is a cool little method for what it does is it evaluates it evaluates whatever you have in here for a parameter for a true-false Boolean. So what it does is, and it applies the true-false Boolean to results. So what it does is it takes the all wins here that we just concatenated, and we're going to evaluate indices, and we're going to return grid boxes at indices 0.textContent equals player, and player would be the X or the O, and grid box indice 1.textContent, which this is just a fancy way of looking for the text content as we've been through before. What is in that text content value? Is it X or O? And seeing if it evaluates to true or false on player, and the same thing for the second one. So this one basically does the top row. So you have position 0, position 1, and position 2, which would be your top grid right here, 0, 1, 2. And then it returns the results. So we're going to return the results back, which is the evaluation. Even though it says 0, 1, and 2, it is going to evaluate, because all wins is a concatenated, very large win options of all these. It's going to evaluate every indice location of this grid box definition against that. And if it returns true, this is where we do our checks. So what happens is, if it returns true, that means that we have a winner, because we have a diagonal or vertical or horizontal win with all the same text content. So here's the check for the X. So if X is true, meaning what I just said evaluates to true, we're going to console out log gameboard module.playerArray 0. If you remember, the player array position 0 and index 0 is the name. So that'd be the name of the person, comma, wins. And then we're going to create a query selector. We're going to query select the body attribute, and then element, and then we're going to create a player win message that's going to be an H1. So we're going to do a little bit of DOM manipulation here, and then we're going to add text content to that player win message, and it's going to take on gameboard module.playerArray 0. So again, the first player's name, X, in this case X, and then wins, plus wins, and that's going to be applied to the player win message, H1, and then we're going to append that to body through the append child right here, we've done before. And then here is we're going to do make move for each. So we're going to loop through each of the, if you remember from the previous videos, make move is a node list, so we're going to loop through each one, and each make moves is going to have a dot remove as a method. And what that's going to do is that's going to remove the it's going to just clever way of removing the button. So all these make move buttons will be removed, and you'll see it in action here at the end, because I'll put it through the browser. But this is going to remove the button, so it's no longer visible and you can't click on it. And then this here, once it does that, then it's going to go on here and do start game button dot remove, same thing. So it's going to target the start game button, which is, this button here. We don't want them to see or click that, because that will mess up the flow of the game. So we're going to remove that as well, so you can't click on it. And then a return statement that will return them back out of the larger context, which in this case is the grid box for each loop. So it's going to break out of that for each loop and go back to listening for the next move. In this case, there won't be one because we've hidden all the buttons, so there won't be a make moves add event listener to click because there won't be anything there. But that's essentially where it would go back up to here and would wait for the listen. And then essentially the next one is a duplication. It's just we're checking for O for win for player 2, and then we're just doing the same thing, but we're targeting player array index 3, which is the name of player 2, and we're going to say that they won. Again, we're going to do some DOM manipulation by adding the creating the h1, appending it to the body, giving it some text content, and looping through make moves to remove the buttons and remove the start button and do a return. And then the last else if this is for a tie example. So this reaches back to the gameboard module, and then we're going to do .gameboard to get access to the gameboard array because we want to check the length of that to make sure that equals 9. So if it equals 9, that means all 3, 6, 9, all of these have been filled in, meaning there's 9 in the array. And I'll show you an example of this, how this works in the browser here in a moment. But if it equals 9, that means that nobody won because the full length of the array is full, and neither of these came out to be true. So these checks were skipped because they were false, and the length filled up of the game board array. So that means it's got to be a tie. There's no other option. So we console log tie, and we do the same thing as before. We query selector body. We create the player win message via the h1 create element, and then we're going to apply the text content of a tie onto the screen via the append child, and then again we're going to loop through the make moves node list to remove all the buttons, and we're going to remove the start game button on that and return. And then everything else is just as before. If that doesn't execute, comes down here, calls make player move, and next player proceeds. And that is it. So we run it here. Okay, add player. We'll say do our name of Justin. Okay, we're player 1, sign letter X, just like last time. None of that's changed. There's Ben. Ben's player 2, and sign letter O. Player 1, make your move. Again, if I had to go back and do this all over again, I'd probably get rid of these alerts because they're actually rather annoying. I thought they'd be really convenient to use, but it is good to keep the flow of the game right so that the players don't get confused and click the wrong turn on the wrong user. So that is a wrong player. So that is good. So anyway, here's an example of X is winning. And see, there it goes. Justin wins. So we see, as before, if you look down here, you were seeing the update. You can replay that to see that live in action. But just updating the array each time, and we're checking the values to sync. And we're displaying Justin wins just as a console log message. But and we have Justin wins here, which is applied correctly. So it's looking out for the player array position 0 and adding in the string wins exclamation point. And you see all the buttons have been removed through that code block, and also if you notice our add player start game has been removed as well. So we clear the board, and there it is all over again, ready to go. So let's do it again here real quick. Justin, Ben, and I'll just show you player 2 doing a diagonal. So player 2, there it is. There's a diagonal player 2 win. Ben wins. Clear the board. Now I will show you the tie. Okay, so I have to do this. There's basically only obviously a couple variations of how this works. So to get this to work to a tie. Okay, player 1 here. I already done this once, so I took a screenshot so I could speed it up for you guys, so I didn't have to fumble around with it. Okay, lost track of where I was at. Yep, nope. Alright, screwed that up. Sorry. Got to talking and lost track of where I was at. Okay, player 1. X. O. X. O. X. O. X. O. X. Tie. There you go. So that works too. And you see live, I'll let you replay the video to see that live. You see how it's appending and updating our game board array. So we can see we got to nine items in the array, 0 through 8 indexes. And when it did that, it realized that it satisfied that last if-else statement. So it's cleared it off as a tie and locked her down. So that's basically it. I know I went through that pretty quick. I didn't want this video to go on real long. It's about 21 minutes, so that's good. Don't forget to push your final Git commits to your changes to GitHub, to your account, and close out the project. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, enjoyed the series, and come along on the ride with me, and hope you learned a little bit along the way. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments section how you guys ended up with Tic Tac Toe, and if you got froggy and decided to go on to the optional things. I'm just not doing that. I'm kind of burned out on this project, and I would like to keep moving on with the education, so I'm going to skip that AI. But I would love to hear from you if you decide to give it a try in the comments. So anyway, with that said, we're going to be heading on to the I think it's ES6 is the next thing, but we're going to be heading on to some more reading material, and we'll pick it back up then. So until next time, see ya.